Jane's unsettling encounter with Jeremy. The first photo you're about to see was taken by a woman named Jane, who met a man named Jeremy through a dating app. After a recent breakup, Jane felt ready to give dating a try again. She had been swiping through profiles and chatting with a few people before matching with Jeremy. He seemed like someone she could comfortably connect with. Jane describes herself as shy and reserved, though she considers herself good-looking, while Jeremy appeared to be her type, a guy with a buzz cut, a full tattoo sleeve, and a love for the outdoors. One of his pictures even showed him with his dog in the bed of his pickup truck, parked in the woods. They struck up a conversation about dogs, which eventually led to talking about local bars they frequented. Jeremy picked Jane up, and they went to a bar called Lansdowne Street, where they seemed to hit it off. Afterward, Jeremy dropped her off at home but seemed hesitant to end the night, even suggesting she come back to his place. Jane politely declined, and that was the end of their first date. They texted for the next few days and met again the following Friday for fast food and ice cream. After chatting in his car, Jeremy took Jane to his house, where he once again tried to get her to come inside. She repeatedly refused, but his persistence grew uncomfortable, even becoming physical at one point. Jane wasn't sure if he was trying to force her out of the car or make an unwanted advance, but she managed to shove his hands away and left the car, walking briskly down the street. Jeremy tried calling, but Jane ignored him, eventually having her older brother Chris come to pick her up. After a tense exchange of text messages, Jeremy cursed Jane out, but then quickly switched to apologizing. Jane, sensing something off, blocked him, convinced that he wasn't as he appeared and might even be dangerous. Now, here's where the photo comes in. That night, Jane was woken up by the sound of her recycling bin being kicked outside her window. It was late, so she got out of bed to check. When she peeked outside, she saw something that made her stomach turn. Jeremy was standing in the dark, wearing a hood and facing her window. Jane, managing to stay calm, took a photo of him. He noticed her and tried to open the window, shouting her name. In a panic, she screamed for her brothers and dad to help. By the time they reacted, Jeremy had fled, his truck's engine roaring as he sped away. Jane, determined not to engage further, filed a police report the next day and obtained a restraining order, using the photo and text as evidence. She sent a copy of the order to Jeremy, but never unblocked him, so he never responded. What Jeremy intended to do outside her window is unclear, but after his creepy behavior and the disturbing messages, it's hard to assume he was anything but dangerous. His actions suggested a troubling obsession with Jane that was only escalating. Anatoly Moskvin and his macabre doll. Next, you'll see a disturbing image of one of the many dolls made by Anatoly Moskvin, a Russian former journalist and college professor with a deep obsession with cemeteries. As a child, Anatoly started exploring cemeteries with his friends, eventually developing a fascination with the dead. Over time, this grew into a morbid hobby of collecting dolls, which became a disturbing obsession. He began digging up corpses and turning them into life-size dolls. Yes, the doll in the photo is made from a real human body. Anatoly's bizarre creations were mostly made from the bodies of young girls, aged 3 to 12, and he would dress them up with makeup and lipstick. He even marked their birthdays in his bedroom. He believed he could bring these children back to life, either through science or black magic, and often wrote about kissing them and caring for them as if they were his companions or even lovers. He would dry the bodies with salt and baking soda, store them in secure locations, and eventually bring them home to preserve and rebuild their bodies in his twisted belief that he could somehow restore life to them. It wasn't until police became suspicious of the growing number of defiled graves that Anatoly's actions were discovered. When his house was searched, they found 26 life-size dolls, mummified corpses, in fact, scattered throughout his home. At first, no one suspected that the dolls were actually bodies, but Anatoly openly confessed to the horrifying truth. Anatoly's parents, who lived with him, claimed they had no idea what he was doing. They believed his doll-making hobby was just a quirky interest, not realizing the disturbing reality behind it. Anatoly never apologized to the victims' families, instead justifying his actions by claiming that he was helping these children. Ultimately, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and is now confined to a psychiatric hospital. Amy Reeves and the stalker who followed her. Lastly, we come to the story behind a seemingly innocent picture of Amy Reeves and her baby sister, taken during Halloween. Me had recently moved from Houston to a small town near Galveston, Texas, hoping for a peaceful life away from the city. However, she quickly began to notice something unsettling. Every time she left her house, a car would follow her. Initially, she ignored it, but as it happened repeatedly, she grew more concerned. One day, she took a different route home, hoping to lose the car. Despite her efforts, the car still followed her, flashing its lights aggressively. She eventually made it home, thinking she was safe, only to see the same car pull into a driveway across the street. The man inside revved his engine, confirming that this was no coincidence. She was being stalked. Amy called the police, who arrived and spoke to the man. However, when Amy went inside, she realized she had accidentally left her back door unlocked earlier that day. Later, while in her bathroom, Amy heard footsteps approaching her bedroom. She quickly locked the bathroom door, but when she peeked outside, she saw a police officer struggling with something in the yard. She then heard an aggressive knock on the wall, separating her bathroom from the bedroom. The stalker had entered her house. Amy managed to escape the house and look for the police, only to find their squad car empty. As she returned, she found one of the officers injured, seemingly attacked by the stalker. The man was eventually arrested for assaulting an officer and fleeing the scene. Amy later discovered that the picture of her and her sister, which she had thought was innocent, had been taken by the stalker while passing by her house, days before the stalking incident even began.